You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name's Andrew W.K. Smith, and this is a conversation with Andrew W.K. The reason for the conversation is to promote the two dates that Andrew is playing in Australia in August. He's playing Saturday the 25th of August at the Corner Hotel in Melbourne, and finally Sunday the 26th of August at the Manning Bar in Sydney. Hopefully some more Australian dates are added to those two. Let's have a listen to what Andrew has to say. Here we go.
Thanks for waiting, Andrew W.K. Smith from Metal Obsession. You are now in interview with Andrew W.K. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much. Hello, mate. How you going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How's the, I call it the Aussie phono grind. How have you been treating you? Have the interviews been interesting?
Oh, yeah, I've been enjoying it very much. I hope that the interviewers have been as well.
Cool. Well, mate, I'm going to kick things off. And look, I do this often, but I really and sincerely mean it every time I do it. I want to offer you a heartfelt congratulations on your career to date. I know it hasn't been easy for you. I've just been reading on Wikipedia all the bullshit that you've had to deal with, you know, you didn't even possibly at a period of time there have use of your own name on recordings. And I think that's tough enough. But the era that you actually came out, so year 2000, year 2001, rock and metal was about as popular as a turd in a punch bowl. But what you did, you were able to reframe, and you were actually able to bring a bit of death metal with you too. And you had Donald Tardy. You might still be working with him now, but certainly you were working with him back then. And I think you were able to raise some consciousness and some awareness of some extreme metal through your music as well, which is great enough as it is. But to then bring a whole part of the music industry with you at a time when it just really wasn't popular at all was something quite special and unique. So I want to offer you congratulations on that.
That's really kind of you to say. It's very generous of you to say. And I suppose it's that much more meaningful to me because I am such a massive fan of Obituary specifically, but also a select few other bands that I would consider part of the traditional extreme metal legacy. And I, out of respect for those groups and that music, I would never dare say that I am even really a heavy metal artist because it's just, my music's not that heavy, but I love metal. And to think that I could have done anything to support or give back to this style of music that's given so much to me and given me so much energy and power to this very day, still listening to it every day, is an extraordinarily kind thing for you to say. So I take that to heart very much. Thank you.
No problem at all. And look, I mean it too, as I said, because I don't know whether, I mean, we'll never know, of course. I mean, the guys in Obituary might have told you otherwise, but they might not have got back together if it wasn't for the fact that Donald was able to work with you and put the band back into the spotlight. And I remember specifically on two occasions you were interviewed on Australian radio back in year 2000 and 2001, and you made a pointed reference to working with Donald. And people wouldn't have known if you weren't talking about it, because I don't know how closely people actually read the liner notes on albums, but it was during that phase there where I think death metal was just about to come out of its hibernation, really, and extreme metal in general, just before metalcore really broke big. But sorry, mate, I'm taking a bit of a tangent. We're not here to talk about that. We're definitely here to talk about your music and your tour of Australia, which I think is coming up in August. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, it's the first time I'm coming back with my full band since 2011. And this version of the band, although it doesn't include Donald Tardy, unfortunately, it does include some of the original members that he helped assemble, because since we've been talking about Donald, we should give credit where credit is due. He really formed this band in terms of he assembled the groups, the first version of the band and that group of musicians and, stage managers, sound guys, tour managers that kicked this whole thing off. And some of those people are still with me to this day. But there's also new members in the band, and this is the best, I must say, with all due respect to everybody who's ever been in the band, just because we've been doing it for almost 20 years now. This is the highest quality show I think we've ever been able to bring.
Okay. Oh, look, I haven't had your newish album for too long. I only just got it this morning. So I've had to listen to it once before, and it seems to continue on in the grand tradition of music that you've been releasing in the past. So what can you tell us about the album, and will it feature heavily in the set list when you come to Australia?
Yes, well, we'll definitely be playing music from the new album, but also from every other of our main rock albums. So I Get Wet, The Wolf, Close Calls with Brick Walls, and then You're Not Alone. So it's a real, I hope, complete show in that regard. And as much as I love the new album, I don't like to focus too heavily on material that people might not be familiar with yet. So we do play some songs from it, but not overloading it, just to keep that. To me, the concert experience is all about singing along and people having that chance to hear a song that hopefully they know very well, being played live with that kind of live intensity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's. I'm very happy with the album, and I really, really, really love playing these songs live.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of tracks on it, and I'm just looking at it here on my Apple Music player at the moment. There's a couple of tracks that are underneath a minute or a minute and a half or so, but mate, for 16 tracks, there's probably 13 to 14 that are actual music. That's a lot of cuts. Now, I know has it been about 8 or 9 years since your last record, or maybe even longer, but is this material that you've been writing in that period that people obviously, you haven't been a recording artist, a studio recording artist, so to speak, but I know you've been bloody busy because I've been checking out your biography. So, you've been doing, you had a radio show, you've been doing a lot of journalism too, so I want to congratulate you again on that because your writing's been of very high quality, very engaging, by the way. But
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And is this material that has been written recently, or is it stuff that you've had in the bank over that decade or so?
It's both. It's both. For better or worse, I was able to continue recording from time to time over all these years, and I suppose that's part of why it took so long to come out. Is I just kept working at it, and sometimes it's hard to finish, as you may know, knowing when to just say this is done. I got to release it. So there's songs on there that go all the way back to 2005, and then some of it was written very, very, very recently, right towards the very end of the recording process. But I tried to include what I thought was a consistent group of songs and hold off on any that were too didn't feel right in the album. So I didn't want it to sound like it was recorded over 12 years. I wanted it to sound like a cohesive statement.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, it certainly sounds that way. As I say, I've only had the one listening experience to it, mate, but it certainly sounds like a very, very solid package. And what's the fan feedback been like about the album? Has it been overwhelmingly positive, or have you found that some people have come back and they want the when I say the older sound, the sound that you produced on I Get Wet?
Well, I always try to make it consistent on a song-by-song basis, meaning that the feeling I'm trying to create is the same feeling. And just once I try to get there in the song, and once that song's done, I try to get to that feeling again. I mean, the feeling is this type of, I don't know just how to describe it. It's a type of just very intense physical energy, just like an amped up, joyful feeling, like when you're on the top of a roller coaster hill and you have your arms up over your head and you're about to go down, and
yep.
Fireworks are going off, and it's the first day of summer vacation, and where that feeling that where everything aligns in life and suddenly makes sense. And it's not that it doesn't occur in your mind. You feel it in your body. And music, there's a kind of music, a certain style of music that is specifically trying to create that feeling and be the soundtrack for those moments that feel like that in life. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So what's been satisfying to me, especially for this album, is it seems like from what people have told me that that's exactly what they're getting. And I've made, 4 rock albums at this point, but I've never had people explain in such articulate language the feeling that they're getting from the songs now. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what I was hoping for. Not every person, obviously, and not an overwhelming number of people, but even just a few, a handful of people that said, this made me feel like life was a triumph. This made me feel like every emotion combined. This made it just really intense feeling. And that's what the music's trying to be. It's not passive music. It's music that's trying to be as overwhelming as possible, I suppose.
Yeah, okay, all right. Hey, I'll take a tangent. You had a fascinating discussion with Jamie Jaster a year or two ago, probably longer, I don't know how long ago it was, but I remember listening to that interview, and it was one of my favourite Jamie Jaster interviews, actually, it must be said. And, you talked about that you don't have a permanent address, so to speak, but far from being a vagrant, you're living out of hotel rooms. Is that still the case for you?
Yes, hotel rooms and the occasional generosity of family members.
Yeah, is that something that you've it's obviously a decision that you've made. Is that something that helps you with the art, or is it just the way you prefer to lead your life?
Well, I'll take responsibility in that I've made decisions that have led to this situation, but I don't know that it's how I would choose to live, indefinitely. I've been in this situation before, and I'm in it again now. And there's things that I absolutely love about it. It's basically just like being on tour all the time. It's just it is the situation, and I accept it.
Yeah, I can relate to it because for a period of time there, I was living out of a suitcase in that I was travelling for work. I used to work for a telecommunications company, and it was the time when I was really listening to Jamie's show and Eddie Trunk's show all the time. It was actually what kept me company when I was on the road. So between, Australia, because you've been here before, but I live in Queensland. So I was travelling up and down the coast of Queensland between Brisbane and Cairns and getting on and off planes and flights and getting into hotel rooms. And I'd often just put on the podcasts and just listen to them in the background. So I think I've got a little bit of an understanding about the kind of life that you're leading. And I had to get out of my job because, to be honest with you, it was too stressful and it was hindering my health. So that's the reason I got out of that. But it's interesting to hear your take on it. So another pretty interesting episode in your career actually was the thing about the US cultural ambassador to Bahrain, which goes from the sublime to the ridiculous in some ways, because how many people get that opportunity?
Well,
yeah, I mean, you were asked to speak at the embassy as a part of a cultural speakers program. Do you know why the invitation was repealed, though? Were you ever given an explanation?
Yes, we were given a sort of paraphrased, kind of opaque explanation, which was that the higher-ups, once the trip was announced and actually got a strong and positive reaction, the higher-ups that weren't originally aware of the trip were suddenly made aware. And as you can imagine, it's very predictable. They saw my bloody nose face, and they saw songs about partying, and they said that this wasn't an appropriate representative of the United States, and it's very disappointing and just a very classic case of judging a book by its cover. But the part that was most frustrating is we'd already had been vetted for a year with the organizers from the State Department, and it wasn't until their bosses canceled the whole thing that it all fell apart.
Well, they're missing out because I think, as I say, your writing's very engaging, and I haven't had an opportunity to listen to your radio show yet, but if your writing's any measure, mate, they've certainly missed out on having somebody talk at an event like that where you could add a hell of a lot of value and from left field, if you don't mind me saying, which I think is with that sort of environment, you need people like you to come in to act as a bit of a circuit breaker, I believe.
Well, thank you. Once they canceled it, there was an additional outpouring of support from a really broad range of people all over. So, in the end, those trips are supposed to, I guess, get attention and create a dialogue in a part of the world that otherwise wouldn't have a dialogue. And I think in the end, we did have a dialogue, even though I didn't go.
Yeah. What are you most proud of in your career? Because there's a lot of success there, and a lot of success against the odds, I might say, as well. So what gives you the greatest source of pride?
The people I've gotten to work with, without a doubt, hands down, the people I've gotten to travel around with and spend my life with, starting with Donald Tardy and my band, they are physically making it possible for me to do this, and we're getting to do it together. And as much as we have shared goals and ambitions, and we're pushing towards something together, we also realize, and I've realized immensely over these past couple of years, the greatest achievement, as you're asking, the most meaningful part, the most meaningful success is that we get to live life together, that we're getting to go through anything meaningful together. That's the biggest reward, is that I've gotten to know these people, and I've gotten to be with them, in a very intimate level, living side by side for week after week after week, traveling around the world. I've spent more time with some of the members of my band than I probably even have my own parents at this point, because it's every day, all day. And it's an unusual opportunity. It's one of the stranger parts of this work that is often overlooked, because you're so caught up, or at least I have been, so caught up in what we're trying to get and what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go, that you realize that the whole time you already were there. You had made it there, and what the there was getting to be side by side with the team.
Yeah, that's a profound response, and thanks very much for that, mate. I'll leave it there. Again, congratulations on an outstanding career. I have no doubt that your new album's stellar stuff. I'll listen to a little bit more, but I should be in the crowd, mate, when you tour Australia. But actually, I didn't notice a Brisbane show on the flyer that I got, so do you know if you're performing in Brisbane when you come?
Unfortunately, not so far. We only were invited to do these 2 shows, and I hope and pray that either the promoter could add some more, or we'll have a chance to come back sooner than later. But as of now, it's just Melbourne and Sydney. Yeah,
it'd be a real shame if you came all this way, mate, and didn't get outside of the two major capitals, mate.
I agree.
You certainly have a lot of fans up here. I can attest for that. You're one of those blokes, actually, who attract fans from just about all genres of rock and metal. Everybody seems to like Andrew W.K. in the same way that everybody likes Motorhead.
Well, that's a huge compliment, and I don't even know what to say, except I'm thankful to the open-mindedness that these people have for music and for me.
Cool, mate. Well deserved, mate. I'll leave it there. Thanks so much again, and all the very best.
Thank you. All the best to you as well.
Thanks, brother. No worries.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye.
Catch ya. Bye. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew W.K. Smith, and that was my chat with Andrew W.K. Thank you so much for listening.